Welcome back to another episode of A Better Way of Earning, where work, money, leadership, and life come together to help you build success on your own terms. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle S. Thomas, and today we're stepping into a conversation that affects every workplace, every team, and every person who has ever worked under someone else's leadership. Why do some people inspire extraordinary performances while others struggle to keep employees engaged? Most people have heard the saying, people don't leave jobs, they leave leaderships. And while that statement may sound simple, there's a powerful truth underneath it. Leadership shapes how people feel about their work, how they see their potential, and whether they believe that their contributions matter. In this episode, we're going to explore why leadership is not just about having a title, managing tasks, or giving instructions. Great leadership is built on career capital, the skills, relationships, experiences, judgment, and credibility you develop over time. Because when you become a leader, your career capital does not disappear, it becomes more visible. People begin to evaluate whether you're competent, credible, connected, and contributing to their growth. I'm going to say that again, their growth. Leaders, hear what I'm saying. It's not about your elevation, it's about making sure that everyone that's a part of your team feels like that there's an aspect of contribution to their own growth. So today we're going to challenge our public playbook around leadership, unpack the success blockers that weaken influence, and then introduce tools that help us understand what leadership really requires. Because great leaders do more than direct performance. They develop people, they create trust, and build environments where others can become better. Let's get started. Leadership is one of those most misunderstood ideas in the workplace because many people confuse leadership with position. They assume that once someone receives a title, promotion, office, or authority, leadership automatically follows. But leadership is not created by a job title, a job description. Leadership is revealed through your behavior. People may comply with a title, but they do not automatically respect it. Compliance means that people do what they're told because they have to. However, my friends, respect means people trust your judgment, believe in your character, and are willing to follow your direction because they see value within your leadership. This is an important distinction. A title can give you access to authority, but it cannot give you influence. Influence is earned through the way you show up, the way you communicate, the way you make decisions, and the way people experience your leadership over time. Most respect competence. They want to know that you understand the work, that you can make informed decisions, and that you're not asking them to do what you do not understand yourself. People respect character. They pay attention to whether you're honest, fair, consistent, and accountable. They notice whether your words and actions match. And for leaders, I just want to really, really drill down and get you to recognize that people watching you isn't just during your 9 to 5 or while you're on shift. I'm using air quotes, but they're watching you, how you navigate life. They see you on your socials, they hear about your views, They see if the leader that they're following during that 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or second shift or third shift, if what you're speaking and saying to them remains consistent as your character, not just as a performance. You also got to understand that people respect consistency. They need to know that your expectations do not change based on your mood, your stress level, or who's in the room. Consistency creates psychological safety because people understand what to expect from you. And people respect connection. They want to know that you see them as people first, not as producers of work. Connection does not mean lowering standards. It means leading with enough awareness to understand what people need in order to perform well. This is why we have to be careful about assuming that authority and leadership are the same thing. Authority can require people to listen. Leadership helps people believe. Authority can assign tasks. Leadership creates ownership. Authority can manage behavior. Leadership shapes the culture. Titles create authority. Character creates influence. And influence is what determines whether people simply work under you or whether they're willing to grow with you. Let's talk a little bit about the leadership capital model. Career capital doesn't, as I said before, disappear when you become a leader. The same skills, relationships, experiences, judgment, and credibility you built throughout your career become the very foundation people use to evaluate whether they can trust your leadership. It becomes visible. When you lead, people begin watching how you apply what you know. They notice whether your decisions are thoughtful, whether your communication is clear, whether you remain steady under pressure, and whether your leadership helps them do their best work. People evaluate leaders through 4 questions. These questions aren't always spoken out loud, but they're always present in the workplace. They shape trust, engagement, performance, and whether employees feel inspired or they feel completely discouraged. Competency. Can you actually do the work? And this is a portion that when I go into corporations to evaluate what the breakdown is with their profitability, their return on investment, their operations, the first thing that I evaluate with the management team is, do they actually understand the work of the department that they're managing? This miss is easier than you expect. Companies are established and built, and those core values and vision and mission are really prominent in the beginning. But as business begins to expand and grow, and over decades and time, a lot of that initial core value and teachings tend to become passed down in micro doses instead of the complete package that the original leaders experience. And so when I walk into an organization and I'm discussing or evaluating the leadership team, and I find leaders that have no idea what each one of the people that serve directly up under them, what their actual job is, what their barriers are, what does it take on a day-to-day basis to execute what they need. Those are 99% of the time the departments that are struggling to meet their numbers and meet their measurables. Your competency matters because people want to know that their leader understands the realities of the job. A competent leader may not know every detail, but they understand enough to ask better questions, remove obstacles, make informed decisions, and recognize quality work. And leaders, if you're new and you're taking over a department or area or even a company, spend some time evaluating the operations of your building, your department, your company. Ask those questions. I find that a lot of leaders feel like that because they have a title that eliminates them from the ability to sit down with someone and really ask the question. You feel like that you'll lose credibility with them, but you'll gain actually more respect from the people that you are asking, as long as those questions are not derogatory or they are belittling to the people that you're discussing. While we're on that topic, let me also drop a little note of wisdom to you. Please do not evaluate your department or ask these questions just so that you can then turn around and execute some punitive repercussions for the information that you found. If you want to diminish the trust that your new company, your new department, the new people around you have for you or potentially could grow and have for you, take the information that they give you and punish them for that. That is the worst move any experienced leader or new leader can make. Just a little note. Be aware of that. Credibility. Do you make good decisions? Your credibility grows when people see that your decisions are thoughtful, fair, and connected to the bigger purpose. Leaders lose credibility when their choices feel reactive, inconsistent, uninformed, or disconnected from the people doing the work. And if you don't think that the people around you are noticing the inconsistency or noticing the shifts in your behavior when other leaders or your boss comes around, those are the things that you want to really sharpen or recognize and work harder on to remove those inconsistencies from your leadership style. Which takes me to the third, and what I believe is one of the most important models of your leadership that you should really work and work to develop is connection. Do your people feel like that you understand what they are experiencing? Connection is the bridge between leadership and engagement. Employees are more likely to stay committed when they believe that their leader understands the pressure, the challenges, the strengths, and the realities of the team. So connect with your team. That old school mindset of they should just be happy to have a job or um, I'm not going to sit there and there are some leaders that believe that they're not going to bond with their team. They're just there to execute a job and punch that clock and get off work. Will your team perform? Probably, so that they can have a job. But will the execution of it be what you need to take that department, take that company, take your area into a growth phase and execute, meet your numbers, exceed your numbers, and have a well oiled machine department? And number four, contribution. Your people are asking you as their leader, do you help me become better? Contributions is where your leadership becomes transformational. A strong leader does not only measure performance, they develop it. They help people build confidence, strengthen their skills, see possibilities, and move towards greater capacity. I just want to pause right here and let you guys know that we, on July 30th, Thursday, July 30th at 7 p.m., we are launching our A Better Way of Earning talk show portion. And this is where we are traveling around the globe to sit down with individuals, leaders, entrepreneurs, everyday people to talk about their idea of earning. Because in this world, we want, if there's anything that we want to be able to showcase, is there's not just one way to achieve success for your life. I want to help to remove some of the panic that a lot of us begin to experience when we don't hit those touch points, those milestones, or those levels that society has convinced us will define our success. And so, having these conversations, I'll tell you, recording and producing this talk show was such an amazing experience for this first season for me, just to listen to other people's perspective about a better way of earning. And our first episode is going to be with Dr. Natalie Williams. And one of the things that she discussed was the difference between leading and developing a team. And so I would encourage you guys to tune in on July 30th to our first talk show episode, A Better Way of Earning talk show, on whatever device or platform that you hear this podcast. You can find the talk show portion also, or you can go directly to abetterwayoferarning.com and see those episodes and listen. One of the things that was so fascinating about what she talked about was not only did she talk about the leadership and what she's learned, but she discussed her own growth of how she learned to become the impactful leader that she is. So tune in. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the episode. Back to our episode here on the podcast. Um, Listen, you can have a title and still struggle to lead if these four areas are weak. The title may place you in front of people, but competency, credibility, connection, and contribution determines whether people trust you enough to follow you. That's why leadership development must begin before the promotion. The way you build out your career capital as an employee becomes the very foundation for the ways you lead as a manager, supervisor, business owner, or even executive. If you yourself have not developed your competency, people may question your direction. If you have not built up credibility, people may question your judgment. If you have not created connection, people may question whether you care. And if you're not contributing to their growth, people will begin to feel like they're working for your goals instead of growing and grooming towards their own. So, the first lesson of great leadership is this: do not wait until you have a leadership title to become someone worth following. Build the habits now, the judgment, the character, and the skill before the role arrives. Because when the title comes, people will not only listen to what you say, they will evaluate who you have become. And once we understand, my friends, that leadership is not just a position, we can begin to look at the deeper question: what blocks people from becoming the kind of leaders others trust, respect, and want to follow? So let's talk about some of those success blockers. Success blocker number one: ego. Ego becomes a success blocker when a leader becomes more committed to being right, being recognized, or being in control than they are to learning, serving, listening, and growing. Ego, no matter what anybody has ever told you before, is not confidence. Confidence says, I can lead, learn, and make decisions. Ego says, I should not have to listen, adjust, explain, or be questioned. Um, does that sound like anybody that you've ever worked for before? Exactly. We've all had those leaders. The difference matters because confidence creates steadiness, but ego creates distance. When ego enters into your leadership, the focus shifts away from the mission and the people. The leader begins protecting their own image instead of improving their impact. They may resist feedback, dismiss ideas, avoid accountability, or interpret questions as disrespectful instead of engagement. This, my friends, is very dangerous because ego weakens all four parts of the leadership capital model. It damages your competency because the leader stops learning. It damages your credibility because people stop trusting your judgment. It damages connection because employees no longer feel heard, and it really damages contribution because you, as the leader, become more focused on being elevated than helping others become better. Here are some common symptoms of ego in leadership: needing to have the final word even when others have valuable insight, taking credit for team wins while avoiding responsibility for team challenges, becoming defensive when receiving feedback, confusing disagreement with disrespect, withholding information in order for you to maintain control, surrounding yourself with people who only agree with you. We call those the yes people. And finally, using authority to silence instead of using influence to guide. Ego often shows up when a leader feels insecure, overwhelmed, or underprepared. Instead of admitting what they need to learn, they try to appear untouchable. Instead of asking questions, they pretend to know, and instead of building trust, they rely on hard control. Because here's the truth: people do not need perfect leaders, they need honest leaders. They need leaders who are secure enough to listen, humble enough to grow, and mature enough to admit when they do not have all the answers. The antidote to ego is humility with responsibility. Humility does not mean shrinking yourself, ignoring your authority, or pretending you have no expertise just so you can blend in. Humility means you're staying teachable while still being accountable for leading well. A humble leader can say, "I made the wrong call, you guys." A responsible leader follows that statement with, "But here is how we're going to correct it." That combination builds trust because people see both honesty and ownership. Here's your ego check. When you feel yourself becoming defensive, controlling, or resistant, pause and ask yourself, am I protecting the mission or am I protecting my image? Am I listening to understand or am I listening to defend? Am I making room for truth or only for agreement? Am I using my authority to build people or just to control them? What would a secure leader do in this moment? The ego check helps leaders interpret reactive behavior before it becomes a part of the culture. Because if ego is not addressed, it does not stay private. It becomes visible in meetings, decisions, communication, conflict, and the way people experience the workplace. Ego asks, how do I look? Leadership asks, how are we growing? Ego asks, who is challenging me? Leadership asks, what truth do I need to hear? Ego protects status. Leadership protects trust. And that's why ego is such a powerful success blocker. It convinces leaders that protecting their position is more important than developing their people. But the leaders who inspire extraordinary performance understands that influence grows when ego gets out of the way. Once ego begins to lose its grip on you, you as a leader can become more honest about the next blocker that often shows up in leadership: insecurity. Insecure leadership. Listen, this is probably one of my favorite topics to teach leaders because oftentimes what I found is people aren't aware of their own insecurities. Here's the definition: insecure leadership happens when a leader's fear, self doubt, need for approval, or fear of losing control begins to shape the way that they lead people. Insecure leadership is not always loud. Sometimes it shows up through defensiveness, micromanagement, avoidance, people pleasing, silence, over explaining, or the inability to make clear decisions. The common thread is that the leader is reacting from fear instead of leading from security. This matters because insecurity changes the atmosphere of a team. When their leaders are insecure, employees often spend more energy managing the leader's reactions than focusing in on the mission. They may hesitate to ask questions, share ideas, admit mistakes, or challenge assumptions because they're unsure how you, as the leader, will respond. Insecure leadership weakens trust because people begin to sense instability. They may not always name it, but they can feel it when a leader is easily threatened, overly controlling, inconsistent, or dependent on constant validation. And here's the difficult truth, my friends: insecurity often disguises itself as strength. A leader may say, I just have high standards, when they're actually micromanaging. They may say, I just want things done right, when they're afraid to trust their team. They may also say, I'm being decisive, when they're shutting down feedback. But leadership rooted in insecurity does not create excellence. It creates pressure, confusion, silence, and codependency. People may still perform, but they often stop bringing their full creativity, honesty, and ownership to work when they find themselves working for an insecure leader. Here's some common symptoms of an insecure leadership: micromanaging because trusting others feels risky, taking questions personally instead of seeing them as engagement, avoiding difficult conversations just to protect your own comfort, needing constant affirmation before making decisions, withholding opportunities from others because their growth feels threatening. Ding, 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 ding. Come on now. I won't promote this person. I'm going to keep suppressing or really drilling hard on this person because they actually know more than I do, but I'm going to prove to them because of my title that they're not better than I am. How about changing expectations frequently to maintain control? That means that you keep your team guessing all the time, like the rules are this constant running finish line. Every day, every week, every month, there's something different for them to adjust and shift to and learn or redo or undo. That changing of expectations can really cause real disruption in your operation. What about competing with team members instead of developing them? And finally, overacting to mistakes instead of using them as learning moments. When insecurity leads, the team becomes smaller. Not physically smaller, but emotionally and professionally smaller. People stop volunteering ideas, they stop taking initiative, they stop telling the full truth, and they begin performing only what is safe instead of contributing what is possible. This is where insecure leadership directly damages the leadership capital model. It damages your competency because you, as a leader, will not allow enough room for others to practice and grow. It damages your credibility because employees begin to question whether decisions are based on wisdom or strictly off of fear. It directly impacts your connection and your connectability because people do not feel emotionally safe. And it damages contribution because the leader becomes the bottleneck instead of a builder. Here's some antidotes to insecure leadership. Secure leadership is the ability to lead with clarity, humility, emotional steadiness, and trust. It does not mean you never feel uncertain. It means uncertainty does not control how you treat people. A secure leader can say, I don't know yet, without feeling weak. A secure leader can also say, this is a good idea, without feeling replaced. A secure leader can say, you are ready for this opportunity, without feeling threatened by someone else's growth. Secure leadership creates room for questions, room for learning, room for honest feedback, room for mistakes that become growth, room for other people to shine without you as the leader feeling diminished. Here's how we can make the shift into being a secure leader. When insecurity begins to influence your leadership, pause and shift the question you're asking yourself. Instead of, what if they make me look bad? Ask, how can I help them become stronger? Instead of, why are they questioning me all the time? Ask, what information or clarity am I leaving out that they need? Instead of, what if they leave or outgrow me? Ask, what does their growth make possible for the team? Instead of, how do I stay in control? Ask, how do I create trust and accountability? Instead of asking, what if I do not have the answer? Ask, who can help us find the answer? The secure leadership shift helps leaders move from fear based reactions to growth based decisions. It reminds us that leadership is not about proving we are the most important person in the room. It is about creating the conditions where the right people, ideas, and solutions can emerge. Insecure leadership asks, how do I protect this position that I have? Secure leadership says, how do I strengthen the people entrusted to me? This is why insecure leadership is such a dangerous success blocker. It may look like control, perfectionism, high standards on the surface, but underneath is often fear. Great leaders learn to recognize that fear without letting it run the team. Once leaders begin moving from insecurity to security, they can confront another factor that quietly limits leadership growth: distance from the work. I call this the office test. Use this quick reflection to determine whether you're leading from close enough to understand the real experience of your team, or you're too disengaged to really improve impact, influence, productivity, and output. Ask yourself, when was the last time you walked alongside your team instead of only directing them from a distance? When was the last time you asked someone, what are the obstacles that's slowing you down? When was the last time you observed the entire workflow closely enough to understand where pressure, confusion, or delays are showing up? When's the last time you celebrated someone publicly for their effort, improvement, or contribution and meant it? And I added that last part in there because, listen, we as human beings are more observant and smarter than a lot of leaders give us credit for. We can tell when your boss or HR or someone has forced you to celebrate us, or when it's organic and you mean it. So let's, if you, as companies, if you're an HR department, just a little nugget from the corner of Dr. Michelle's experience. Let's try to stop with these scheduled and everyone knows that this is more of a superficial um, type of celebration. And let's look for real wins and ways for us to celebrate people in the manner that they can recognize. There's one thing for you as a leader to feel like buying a birthday cake for everybody on their birthday is a celebration. But do you know your team? There's some people that don't like cake. I'm just saying. There's some people that don't want their birthday to be broadcast like that. Do a touch point. Spend some time with your team. Find out what really works for them so that if you are celebrating and when you do celebrate your team, that it is honest and it is engaging and is sincere. And finally, when was the last time you learned something valuable from someone that you lead? If you cannot remember, that may be a sign that you're managing from such a far distance rather than leading with presence. Great leadership requires proximity. The closer you are to the work, the better equipped you are to remove obstacles as they arise, not after they have such a negative impact. You can build trust in your team, you can recognize growth, and you'll be able to lead your people so much better. That public playbook, let's talk about how it shows up in leadership sometimes. Some leaders still operate from the belief that employees should simply be grateful to have a job. That mindset may produce compliance, but it rarely creates trust. It definitely does not give your team any ownership of their position, and it will not yield you any type of long-term commitment. The old leadership questions, shouldn't my team be grateful to have a job? I mean, I pay them. Why do I need to spend time with them? Why do I need to do all this stuff that you're saying? Because I give them a paycheck. The, the question that today's workforce is asking is, do you, my leader, value what I bring? In another episode of the podcast, I discussed that we are now a global society. And so people understand that they have the freedom to work anywhere that they choose. What are you providing for them to choose to work for you? Old leadership style question, shouldn't you just be grateful to have a job? Today's workforce is asking, what value do you bring? Those two questions create two very different workplace cultures. Gratitude based leadership expects employees to accept conditions without questions and often results in compliance. Value based leadership recognizes employees' contributions, listens to their needs, and creates commitment. The difference matters because people may follow instructions when they feel obligated, but they give their best effort when they feel seen, respected, and valued. Every employee brings their career capital to the workplace, their skills, their experiences, their relationships, their judgment, ideas, and potential for growth. The way a leader responds to that career capital can either strengthen the team or limit what people are able to contribute. Great leaders recognize career capital. They notice people's strengths. They create opportunities for growth. They help employees use what they know in meaningful ways. Average leaders overlook career capital. They may focus only on tasks, titles, or immediate performance without fully seeing the abilities developed within the team. Poor leaders suppress career capital. They limit initiative, ignore ideas, or create environments where employees feel unable to use their full potential. The people on your team are building career capital every day through the work they do. the problems they solve, the relationships they develop, and the confidence they gain. The leadership question is this: are you helping your team develop their career capital, or you're preventing them from using it? 4 conversations every leader should have. Strong leaders do more than check on tasks. They create conversations that help people learn, solve problems, build skills, and grow with confidence. Instead of only asking, "What are you working on?" begin questions that reveal development, obstacles, goals, and support needs. Ask questions like, "What are you learning?" This helps you understand whether the work is developing the employee's career capital or not. What obstacles can I remove? This shows that leadership is not about assigning work, but also about clearing the path for better performance. What skills do you want to develop? This opens the doors for intentional growth instead of assuming employees will develop by accident. How can I help you grow? This communicates investment, support, and partnership in the employee's future. When leaders ask better questions, they move beyond managing activity and begin developing people. That is when leadership becomes more than oversight, it becomes growth. Why do you care about your growth? Because there is a such thing as leadership ROI. Great leadership should produce a return, not only for the organization, but also for the people being led. That return shows up in the way that people grow, contribute, and stay engaged over time. Great leaders increase 4 things: confidence, capability, connection, contribution. If your leadership is not increasing one of those 4 things, it's probably decreasing engagement. This is the leadership ROI. The return on great leadership is not measured only by completed tasks or short term results. It is measured by whether people become stronger because they have worked with you. On this podcast, I don't give you any advice or directions that I've never understood, executed, or implemented myself. These things are coming directly from my decades of experience in being a leader in various industries and an array of different sizes of companies and corporations and in different positions. So I want you to have this information because for a long time, my friends, I thought that what I knew and what I experienced, everybody knew. So what am I supposed to talk about? Until I got out there in the world and realized that there's a lot of lessons that especially people in the workforce were never taught, but just expected to know. Here at A Better Way of Earning, we're here to give you not only information, but real tools for you to implement and execute and see real results from. As we close on this episode, remember this: leadership is not proven by the title you hold, it is revealed by the environment you create. People do not only respond to what you assign, they respond to how you lead, how you communicate, how you make decisions, and whether your presence helps them become better. Today, we challenge the public playbook that says leadership is mainly about authority, control, or having the final word. We also examine the success blockers that weakens our influence, ego, and insecure leadership, distance from the work, and the failure to recognize the career capital people bring into the workplace. The better way is to lead with competency, credibility, connection, and contribution. Build trust before you demand commitment. Ask better questions before you assume understanding. Remove obstacles before you judge performance, and recognize the value people are building before they begin to believe their growth is invisible. This week, ask yourself, Is my leadership increasing my confidence, capability, connection, and contribution, or is it quietly decreasing engagement? Because people may leave jobs, but many times they are really leaving. What they are really leaving is the feeling that their growth, their voice, and their value no longer matters. Thank you for joining me for another episode of A Better Way of Earning podcast, where work, money, leadership, and life come together, helping you build success on your own terms. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep leading in a way that helps others become better.